All right, I'm gonna try this. It's like my third retake of this. New car, new setup, so hopefully this sticks. I'm gonna touch on an old topic that I've done a couple times in the past, a number of times in the past. Handoffs. And a lot of you are probably gonna be like, that have seen some of those videos, and probably like, why is he continually harp on this stupid topic? It's such a minor topic. As a nursing student, yes, it's a totally minor topic. It's not a big deal, not a significant one. It's covered. But as an RN, it is a foundational skill. I rate it as high as med pass, charting, you're maintaining your skills, wound care, and even, cleaning and all that stuff. Probably higher than those. Handoff as an RN. So nursing students, you don't really have to worry about it until the future. So concentrate on your studies first, don't get me wrong. But, this channel deals with everything, everything bedside at least. Handoff is so critical. We, as nurses, gauge each other on that. It's one of our main gauges, by the way. Not med pass, although, we're like, that's a med error, so don't get me wrong, that's assumed that you know that. Assume that you're cool under pressure, all that stuff. Or, how you respond to RRTs, how you place an IV, how you do handoff, how you function in your critical thinking are probably the three main ways we gauge one another. Okay? Whether you're a 20-year veteran nurse, 2-month new nurse, 2-year, just coming out of orientation, basically, 35-year grizzled, does nursing by, telepathy, not even a sense of smell at that point. It's just like, okay. That is how we gauge each other. IV sticking ability is pretty ranked high. It could be IV queen, king, and whatever. We respect that skill. That's a really respected skill. One. How you critically think is probably the number one gauge of how, metric of how we gauge each other. How you respond to pressure, what you do, what you're thinking, how you're thinking ahead. Then we say good nurse and bad. Because you could be a horrible IV nurse, horrible IV placer, like myself. You can be horrible and still be considered a really good nurse. I'm not saying I'm a real good nurse. I'm just saying I'm bad at IVs. Or you could be really good and considered it makes up for some of your shortfalls. But I know a number of really good nurses, real good IV nurses that are as nurses. That's just the way it is. You say, oh yeah, they're good at IVs, but what are you going to do? Critical thinking is number one. And that's why it takes a couple years for people to get seasoned. I don't care how good of a student you were, you know nothing coming out of the gates. A year into it, you're beginning to not have that deer in headlights look. 2 years into it is usually the metric where most people get comfortable. I'm hitting 3-year mark. I passed the 3-year mark, shit. And I'm just getting comfortable. Different people have different, modes of getting and rates of getting comfortable. It took me 3 years to really get comfortable. But that's the number one metric. How you think under critical pressure, calling an RRT, how you function on RRT, avoiding the RRT, by heading off the problems before they occur. That's how I gauge a good nurse or bad nurse, frankly. That's how I say, okay, good nurse, bad. Oh, I don't want that one. Oh, I'm going to have to help that one all night long. That's your number one gauge. Very close to that is handoffs. Okay? We actually gauge each other through our handoffs. That's how important it is. That's why I'm emphasizing in so many videos. People don't realize that. That's how we gauge each other. Nurse to nurse, that's how we gauge each other. Doctors gauge us by their critical thinking, heading off problems at that. Say, okay, thank you for catching that. Oh, Thank you for reminding me for the D-dimer. Oh, don't forget about the D-dimer. Their coagulation state is useless. We're getting chest X-ray. Oh no, we should get an angiogram. Blah 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 blah. What's their BUN? Oh yeah, thanks. We switched that med. They like it that you can think for them sometimes and give them suggestions. Most of the doctors nowadays, there's still some old timers that like, I know better than you no matter what, even when they're wrong. But a lot of the new ones are like, they're handling hundreds of patients. They don't remember Joe Smith. Come on. They're like, oh shit, that's right, thank you. Catch mistakes. It's not that they're incompetent, it's that they're overwhelmed. So if you can help them a little bit, they appreciate it. They gauge us that way. Critical thinking. Nurse to nurse, we gauge that way, and handoffs. That's how we gauge it. Our managers gauge us by our timeliness. How quickly we get through mid-pass. Do we handle everything? Everybody's safe? Those, that kind of thing. There's, okay, they're competent. They're okay. They might be assholes. They might give horrible handoffs. They don't care. As long as we're timely. We're not logging huge amount of overtime. So we're handling the emergencies. We're doing the tasks assigned to us. Time. Doctors are looking for critical thinking skill set from us. Nurse to nurse, we're thinking timeliness, all that stuff, but also handoffs. You have to learn to give good handoffs. You need to be able to do it pretty succinctly, quickly. Frankly, nurse to nurse, we gauge each other, say, hey, look it up. Frankly, under our breaths, we'll say that. It's like, really? You need me to tell you the lab values? Go look it up. I'll tell you it's a critical lab value, but if the BUN's 26, go look it up yourself. I'll tell you if it's 87. I say, yo, that's an issue. That gets a little high. The clearance was like 2. They don't have kidneys. They're relying on a sponge. It's stuff like that. It's like, no. There's some issues there. You got to deal with that and meds accordingly. Expect, dialysis imminently, that kind of stuff. I might mention that, but I was like, nah, they're dialysis Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Move on. Inpatient, outpatient, whatever. We'll go through it quick. But there are a number of nurses that want to go over every value. And they're good nurses. There are good nurses and there are bad nurses. Case in point, I will give you examples. I had a nurse, a couple of days in a row. I was doing 4 shifts. Basic, the first day, you got to give a full report. Okay. Updates, quick. Full report took 45 minutes, 6 patients. Updates, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, maybe. It's like, oh, yeah, there were some changes. We went over them. Bye. Done. Another nurse comes in. I had to give them full report. Only 5 patients now. We were fully staffed that day. Yay. Took me an hour and a half. Shit, you're not. 5 patients, 1 patient less. Same patients, by the way. The 6th patient was actually the same one, but I didn't have him anymore. 5, same patients. No changes from that nurse. But I have to give full report. You would think, okay, then should that take you about 45 minutes? It took me an hour and a half. It should have taken me less, right? If it was the same nurse coming back, let's say after a couple of days, I have to give them full report again. If they didn't keep their notes, which you should keep your notes, you could do it in 40 minutes, 35 minutes, right? Whatever, right? This new nurse took her an hour and a half. She's the one that makes people cry. And that's just what it is. All right? Had a friend. She was just finishing up too. I was like, what? I took an hour and a half, but I had, Joe Blow. I had Jane Doe. What? Why are you still here? And she was like, I don't know, this new nurse or what. She was like, I had every comment questioned. She was like, was that a CBC or a CMP? And she's like, look. She wanted to say, look it up. God damn. It's like, what the? Was that a CTA or is it chest X-ray? The Doppler? Every comment. She said every comment. She double checked with me. Like teach back, read it. And she's like, I don't know if she's a new nurse or what. And she was in new tears because she had to come back that night. I was done. Well, I was my fourth. I was ready to go. That was her first or third. She was ready to cry. An hour and a half? She still has to go home, hopefully sleep and eat, and then come back. And she's like me. She comes in an hour early. So, God forbid. And she was charged. She was ready to cry. She was still doing her charge stuff then. She was just about to sit down and do her charge stuff then. So, be aware. Giving good report is a huge metric we measure each other by. Nobody else does. Only us, nurse to nurse, RN to RN, or LPN to LPN, whatever, Usually LPNs are dealing with long terms, mostly nowadays, and that's, you have them for 6 years, so it's the same, no change. Miss Jane is still the same, no changes from 98, whatever. But report is so critical, and it's unfortunately an overlooked skill, or not so emphasized. That was actually one of my failings as an orientee, as a preceptee. My preceptor ran my ass. She was a Marine drill sergeant. Kicked my ass up and down about it. Constant, and I had to develop my own style, had to develop my own paperwork to help keep me on track, that I still use today. And it helps. I've had many nurses, in their precept, they're like, can I have a copy of that? And they still use it to this day. I'm like, oh, you still use that? And she's like, yeah, no, it's fine. It helps me. So it's something where we really measure each other by. People do not give it enough emphasis. Again, nursing students worry about passing. This is something you worry more about when you get your RN license. Okay, I don't want you guys diverting any of your mental time or resources to this skill. Listen in when you're at clinicals. Pay close attention how they're going through things. What's good and bad, because you'll hear bad handoff and you'll hear good handoffs. And the other day I had a bad handoff. I'd been arguing with my girlfriend for an hour and a half, texting, as I could from 5 a.m. to whatever, and she's pinging me for different shit, and I'm like, look, I'm at work. Don't bother me. You're a nurse too. Don't bother me. It was downtime, so it was no problems. And I wouldn't respond because if I had to do anything, whatever. But then I'd take a quick break and answer her back. But it threw me off my game. And I for one or two patients, I gave bad handoff. I know that. I could see the expression on the other nurse's face. I knew her. So sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah. And I went back. So you could still be thrown off your game. But usually it's, she and I have a good rhythm. That particular nurse and I've given her handoff many, many times, and vice versa. She knew I was off my game for whatever reason, and that was why. But understand, it is a foundational skill. Okay, it is not a peripheral skill. It is a foundational skill, more so than IV placement. Let's put it that way. I place it like number 2 or 1A. Definitely not number 1. Critical thinking is still number 1. But is it 1A? Is it 2? No lower than 2 or 2A, the worst. So you're talking about that kind of level of importance. Okay? Good luck.